Now, I recently watched the trailer for the new Netflix He-Man series. On the surface, it looks pretty good. I mean, the animation's pretty good. It's a powerhouse production. The voice talent doesn't sound too bad. I mean, you got Mark Hamill as the ultimate overlord of evil, Skeletor, so how could you go wrong there? And it's a decent enough update with many of Eternia's designs. But on the other hand, it's the story, compliments of one Kevin W. Smith, that worries me. It's basically one of those old, much like the She-Ra remake, it's going to be one of those ultra woke, Teela is going to be the main character, He-Man's going to get shoved to the background despite the fact his name's in the goddamn title. Making the lead character, the female lead, an LGBTQ bitch. It's a trope that we got with the She-Ra remake. Let me put this bluntly. Can we stop trying to cater to the minority of the population in this nation with our productions? LGBTQ population, it only makes up 4% of the people in this country. Now, let me just make this abundantly clear. I did not grow up with the original 1984 He-Man, or even the 1990 sequel. I grew up with the reboot Cartoon Network got, the reboot of He-Man, that Cartoon Network put out in 2002. The one that was dubbed by the Ocean Group. That was the He-Man I grew up with, and it was a great show that unfortunately got cut down in its prime after the Snake Men arc. And why was that? Because I felt that the story of the '02 remake was better handled. It took away some of the grievances people have with the '80s iteration, i.e., they took away Cringer's voice, which I was grateful for, because I've gone back and watched some of the '80s versions episodes here on YouTube, and I'm going to be blunt. Cringer should not talk, and for that matter, neither should Battle Cat. They actually make Adam become He-Man at a much later date than he did in the original series, where any flashbacks with Adam had him set up to become He-Man, as a kid, where he's basically told of his destiny as a child, and not told of it that after an era of peace is basically shattered. They brought... Another good thing about the '02 remake is, I believe they brought Alan Oppenheimer back as Skeletor in that one, but made him sound much more menacing. And don't get me wrong. Mark Hamill, well, he's gonna do great as Skeletor. How much more menacing can you get than the guy who has voiced the likes of the Skeleton King, Firelord Ozai, and of course, the self-styled Clown Prince of Crime? You can't go wrong with Mark Hamill voicing a villain. yard workers outside, if you're wondering what that noise is. That being said, though, I don't like the direction they're going with most of the other characters. I mean, I'm a little stumped with Orko's redesign. I get he's much older, a little more powerful than he was, and I'm pretty sure they're gonna make Orko a much more jaded character, where as opposed to both interpretations, he served both the original 80s and the O2 re-release. He served as comic relief, and much like in both iterations, he was initially one of the only handful of individuals that knew Adam and He-Man were one and the same. The only other two were, of course, well, three if you want to count Cringer, were, of course, the Sorceress and Man-at-Arms. But with Kevin W. Smith basically lying to the press about how he's altering the script and desecrating it just to promote a leftist woke agenda, it's a little sickening that a comic book fan would twist the narrative to serve his own ends. And this is a guy who's a self-described 80s kid, I might want to point out. A kid of the 80s. It's like they're taking everything from the 80s and bastardizing it. And you could say this has been going since 2007 with the live-action Transformers films directed by Michael Bay. Then they bastardized Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Alvin and the Chipmunks, though I'm not really going in any order. Rebastardized the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The cinema versions, not the TV versions, for those wondering. I didn't have a problem with either the 03 incarnation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or the 2012 Ninja Turtles. It wasn't until around 2018 when Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out where I basically had a bit of a beef with it. With the way Nickelodeon was handling the property. Ghostbusters. Whoop. Wrong button. Sorry about that. Child's Play, although technically that was much later in the 80s, but it still counts as the 80s. I mean, seriously, is nothing from the 80s sacred anymore? And yes, I am fully aware of Disney's horrendous attempt to do a live action remake of The Little Mermaid where everything is going to get blackwashed. Well, Caribbean washed, but similar, but same principle. And this sort of mental thought makes me sick. Who in their right minds would decide to bastardize these... Oh, Thundercats and She-Ra, of course. Or two other properties that got bastardized in the recent years. Of course, with Thundercats, I didn't have a problem with the 2011 reimagining. It's this Thundercats roar shit that pissed me off. Where they dumbed everything down. It's like, from the 2010s onward, no one cares for kids program that's meant, most of the time, that is meant to challenge their maturity, to make them feel more intelligent. Instead, it's about pandering and indoctrinating them through using CRT messaging. And I find this to be a whole load of bullshit. I've gotten off track, I'll admit. But you at least now know. No, I have a bet when it comes to this new He-Man Revelation thing that's coming out in July on Netflix. I'll put it simply like this. I have a bad feeling about this, and I'll leave it at that. Smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I'm basically doing this to make up for lost time after that COVID misinformation strike I got last week. Goodbye. Good night. Bang.